Okay, so the first question we had asked, what was a saurian? And with a little bit of discussion, we know that it's going to be a reptile. Well, one, that's got scaly skin. Two, it's got claws, and three, it would have teeth. Now, that could be describing any type of reptile, but in this case, since it's got legs, claws, scaly skin, you'd have to be able to eliminate that down to possibly either alligator, crocodile, caiman. Can't be a snake because that is the order Serpentae. And if this is a saurian, well, then the last one that's left through a process of elimination would be, of course, lizards. Okay? And you might be, for instance, asking yourself, well, if turtles are lizards, which they are, where are the teeth on those individuals? Well, as far as having, you could say, different types of teeth, I believe you could say there's maybe just one, maybe in the front of their mouth, okay? And that would be considered their appropriate type of tooth, okay? So it can't be a snake because you said something about claws, correct? And of course, snakes don't have claws, and we know that. Why? Because they don't have legs. That is correct. Okay? So what is unique about the vertebrae of snakes as opposed to any other type of reptile? Well, it does. So you could say that they're shorter. And what else? Not longer. Said they're shorter. And they're wider, okay? Shorter and wider than those of their legged vertebrates, okay? In other words, maybe you could say their closest relatives, even that of one we haven't discussed yet was the order Testudines, which is that of your turtles. And then, no surprise, Crocodilia is an order name for those three: caimans, alligators, and crocodiles. But in this case, okay, if these are shorter and wider, which they are, that doesn't explain why would they be shorter and wider. Okay, that is one of your vocab terms where you say your hand is moving back and forth, and that's called an undulation. And basically what that means is that there's a lot more lateral stress due to this. So that's why these vertebrae are shorter and wider. And, now we went back to the lizards. I was thinking if we went back one, that would maybe explain it. Okay, here's our undulations we just made a reference to. Quick lateral undulations, which is side to side, which can be maybe through grass or any sort of tough terrain. So then that increases the, what does it say, rigidity, of the vertebral column. Say this is maybe a little vague, but what it says, rely on chemical senses, okay, rather than vision or perhaps vibration. So what would you presume that we mean by chemical senses? The eyes can't detect chemical senses, although maybe you could say certain types of birds of prey can detect ultraviolet light, but that's really not a chemical sense. You could say, would they be able to feel the vibrations? Well, no. It says rely on their chemical senses rather than vision or vibrations. So they haven't tasted the animal yet, but they have indirectly. Because how do reptiles go through the process of smelling? Yes, so that what happens is once they stick their tongue out, okay, there's always going to be different types of, you could say, water vapors in the air. And that water vapor gets stuck on their tongue. And when they bring that back in, there is a specialized organ on the roof of their mouth. For all other animals, whether you could say mammals and humans and you could say even other reptiles, there is a structure called the olfactory bulb that does the determining of sense. But in this case, there's an accessory structure called the Jacobson's organ. And I would think that we would get to that today. And that's just, again, something that accessorizes their senses. Now, I can't really think of any rhyme or reason that these animals don't have, per se. Yes, they've got nostrils, okay? We do know that because when we start talking about the family of snakes known as the vipers, there's actually really sensitive nerve endings in the ends of those nostrils, but that's not for smelling. That is more so for detecting heat. This, again, I really don't have any rhyme or reason on why they don't, you could say, have a what we consider a nose that would be both for respiration, for smelling, other than that's just what nature had selected these animals to do. And one of the things that we had said, is it easier to grow legs or lose legs? We didn't write it down, we only said it. It would be easier to lose the hardware than to actually have to manufacture the hardware. So perhaps what had happened is as lizards were maybe going further inland from a waterway, which they don't have to be near water. But if they're going after a specific type of prey item that can burrow into the ground or get through different types of cracks or crevices, well then it's going to be an advantage to, per se, lose those legs, because then they'd be more flexible and be able to go after that prey item because their legs aren't in the way. All right, so I want to do this one. And I think we'll stop at the end of this one, because then we're going to start getting into the specific families of snakes. And this would be one of the aspects you're responsible for identifying this in a diagram, what and where these pit organs are located. And as you can see, they're between the nostrils, okay, and the eyes. And as we had already mentioned, they're very heat sensitive. Okay, the rest of the week says that tomorrow we'll have a paper assigned, okay? Your essays or short answers or whatever you want to classify them as, which they are due a week from Wednesday. That's our approximate date. We have a vocabulary evaluation then on Thursday. We will continue talking about snakes, not just as we did today, tomorrow, and we'll see once how Wednesday shakes out. So we had left off with Dr. Fry talking about different types of venoms, and one of the aspects that as we continue, there's what we consider actually venomous insects as well. So what we've seen so far is what type of venomous creatures have we seen besides snakes? Komodo dragon is one. That's right. And as far as I don't believe they've gotten into any of the arachnids, or arthropods, you could say. But they'll make reference to them possibly later on in this hour. Okay, so that's what we're looking forward for the rest of the week. So that's all I have for discussing this. We will continue with venom here shortly. We'll catch up to you next time.